The Warp Ghosts are probably one of the most mysterious Chaos Space Marine warbands that currently exists in the lore, and what makes them really interesting is they very well may be one of the most important as well. We really don't know too much about these guys. We don't know what legion they descend from, what time period they were created in, what their ultimate goals and ambitions are, or perhaps even most mysteriously, what they even are. Nothing about them seems to make sense, and the best source that we have on them comes from a strange encounter during the Black Legion novel by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. I don't want to spend too much time in this video giving an entire summary of the book, so all you need to know is that this takes place before the First Black Crusade, and Abaddon and his Black Legion are for the very first time attempting to break free from the Eye of Terror back into real space. They're not alone in their endeavor, as there is a warlord of the Death Guard, known as Derevak, that is attempting to do the same thing. Derevak's fleet, by comparison, is vastly more powerful than Abaddon's. He has more warriors, more ships, and an enormous amount of resources at his disposal. Both of the fleets have become becalmed in the warp, right outside of the entrance of the Eye of Terror, so neither of them can move forward and actually break free. It's then that they decide to have a meeting on a nearby planet to discuss terms. It's not really a parley, a peace treaty, or any kind of real negotiation, as Derevak realizes that Abaddon's in no position to negotiate, and Derevak is simply here to make demands. He wants ships in exchange for not attacking them. It's during the meeting, however, that something really strange happens. A new fleet appears out of nowhere in between both of the others. Abaddon's sorcerer, Iskandar Kane, looks up and remarks that the ships are incredibly bizarre. They don't really seem to make a lot of sense. They have enough in common with other Imperial ships that they are very clearly of human origin, but none of them are able to recognize what exact pattern they are. They're not from the present, and they're not even from the Horus Heresy era. They're clearly much more advanced and almost futuristic. One by one, every ship in both of the Chaos fleets reports that they have suddenly been boarded, which should be impossible, or at least it will require a full-scale assault. But on each and every one of them, a single lone Space Marine in gray armor with no recognizable symbols has appeared out of nowhere. As the reports start to come in, both sides believe that the other has broken their momentary truce, so the high-tension situation is in danger of reaching a breaking point. It's just then that another one of these Gray Marines appears on the horizon and starts to walk towards the group. I'm going to read for you the passage from the Black Legion novel where this occurs, and just for context, it's Iskandar Kane, Abaddon's personal sorcerer, that is narrating. I looked between the two opposed, confused groups of warriors. One by one, they turned to stare across the dusty garden with its eroded statuary, where a lone warrior walked from the Eldar ruins. He was dead. I thought that at once, as easily if I had seen decaying flesh or smelt the rotting musk of decomposition. To my sixth sense, he was without a soul, a man disconnected from the mechanisms of life, and yet he walked closer. His armor the light gray of an overcast sky, tinged by the faintest pale green, his eye lenses red-lit from within. He was no demon. Demons had no souls, yet they are presences in the warp. They are the warp itself, and form writhing, drifting things before my psychic gaze. Yet he was no human. Humans have shining souls, and they are beacons in the warp's tumultuous night. Whatever this warrior was, he walked the line between mortal and immortal, fused with the warp, yet not born from it, saturated by the immaterium, yet not possessed by it. He had a soul. I saw as he drew near, and it was still his own, a weak thing, a dim and shredded light. There was a beauty in that, in the same way a lesser mind, reliant on the five mundane senses, might see beauty in a color never before seen. Here before me was a kind of entity I had never believed possible, taking the form of a brother legionary. What legion or chapter had sired him, I could not say. His armor was of a mark unknown to me then, not even matching the newer suits of Aquila pattern battleplate that I had seen aboard the Black Templar's vessel. The Grey Warrior turned his helmed head to each in turn, showing no favor either way. The voice that emerged from his helmet grill was deep, though not unusually so for a legionary, and his words were preceded by a click of vox projection, just as any of our voices were. I am Saronis. Within his words, I heard the telltale flow of respiration. He was dead to my sixth sense, yet alive to all others. My fascination deepened. Had he been one of us before undergoing these changes? Was he still one of us, but with mutations of the soul that set him apart? The icon on his pauldron was not one I recognized, but it was nevertheless gravid with symbolism. Two skulls set within an 8-spiked disc, one looking to the left and the other to the right. An inscription ringed the staring skulls, cast in dark silver, and written in an unfamiliar dialect of High Gothic. In Abysso Talimus Eniabus Dominatus. The exact translation evaded me, but I could make out its meaning. "We bear the souls of the damned through the depths." The conversation that plays out here is admittedly cryptic and mysterious, and basically every question that Derevek asks is met with the same line over and over. "You speak irrelevancies. How did you reach us undetected? Where do your loyalties lie? Etc., etc." Eventually, Abaddon asks if they will guide them out of the storm, and that gets the warrior's attention. He says that they will if they are willing to meet their price. Cernunnos reveals that him and the other warp ghosts' main purpose is to guide other ships out of the Eye of Terror. And what's important to remember here is at this point in the timeline, the first Black Crusade has yet to happen. No Chaos fleet has ever been able to successfully break free from the Eye of Terror, but apparently the Warp Ghosts have already mastered this ability and are able to assist others in the process. Cernunnos asks both sides what they are willing to sacrifice, and the Death Guard leader, who is like a fat, greedy king, tells him that he will give him whatever he wants. Ships, slaves, weapons, it didn't matter. He was so confident in his ability to utterly destroy the fledgling Black Legion that he would take them from his enemies and give them to the newcomers. Cernunnos acknowledges this and then turns to Abaddon and asks him the same question. After consulting with his sorcerer, Abaddon realizes that a sacrifice means nothing unless the individual is truly giving up something of value. A sacrifice was meant to hurt you. Giving something meaningless or something taken from another was just an offering. He speaks his offering to Cernunnos, and after hearing his words, 50 more legionaries of the Warp Ghosts materialize out of nowhere. They point their guns at Derevek, telling him that his offer had been refused, and that they would be assisting Abaddon and the Black Legion. We don't get to see what that sacrifice is until later in the book, but it's revealed that Abaddon was willing to give them bodies, flesh, living beings, and specifically those of Psychers within the Black Legion and the Psyker children of the fleet's human slaves. It is believed that whatever the Warp Ghosts actually are, they do not have bodies of their own and must inhabit living flesh that will eventually rot and decay. Thus, they need a steady supply of other psychically gifted individuals with which to bond with. The White Seer, Ashur Kai, being one of the sorcerers that willingly agrees to go with Cernunnos and the Warp Ghosts. And mysteriously enough, although it's not directly confirmed here, it's heavily implied that Cernunnos was actually the future self of Ashur Kai. To this day, we still don't have a very clear picture of what exactly the Warp Ghosts are, just that they're a mysterious spectral chaos warband that exists somewhere between life and death, and has been instrumental in escorting Chaos fleets out of the Eye of Terror. Whatever their ultimate goal is still remains a mystery, but if it hadn't been for them, then the Black Crusades could never have happened. Although the exact nature of the Warp Ghost is still unclear, the true nature of another